GRRRR. Number 1, number 3. Grass River, 3 R's. Grass River Railroad. Why they didn't do G?
this. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to rumble?
Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Big Bill coming to you live from Model Railroading Live, the number one model railroading show in the world. It is June 24th, 2020. It is 9 p.m. and it's time to I hope everybody out there is having a safe start of the summer. We're starting to open up here in New York City, and as you all noticed, I got a haircut today, so life is coming back to somewhat normalcy here. Every COVID incidences are down, and we're starting to get back in shape here, so we'll see what's going to happen. But anyway, I want to welcome you guys tonight to this show of Who's Big Bill Talking to You. But before we get to our guest, I just want to read out get some homework to do. I know. We got that Railroad Empire series. We're coming into episode 5 this Saturday, June 27th at 9 p.m. Eastern time. They're going to be doing electrical wiring, wiring up the layout and stuff like that. And our hosts on that show will be Andy, Robert, Tim, and Lloyd, the four amigos. And they certainly have been covering a lot of stuff. They did the ballasting, the bench work. They've been doing everything from soup to nuts, and it's a 10-part series. So this Saturday, June 27th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll have Railroad Empires, How We Build Them. And then on July 2nd, because Johnny's taking off alternate weeks on Thursday because it is the summertime, Johnny's Train Talk Show will broadcast on July 2nd, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's where you guys out there in the community can come aboard like we see us here. And you can be a part of the show. It's a bring and brag. You can bring anything that you're working on and show it off. Or if you have a situation, electrical, mechanical, train-wise, you can bring it on too and ask a question on something. We got a lot of guys in here. You get 7 guys. We always get 10 different opinions on how it should be run. So that's Johnny's Train Talk Show on July 2nd, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Like I said, tonight is Model Railroading Live. The show is called Who is Big Bill Talking to? Our guest tonight is James Adams. Thank you, James, for being on here.
Well, thanks, Bill, for having me. I appreciate it.
James is the owner, operator, entrepreneur of AffordableModelRailroad.com and also RailroadBackdrops.com. And for you guys that don't know what that is, why don't you explain it to me, Steve?
Well, RailroadBackdrops.com is one of the, like to think, foremost photographic backdrop companies in the industry. We started just a little over 4.5 years ago, and I think we're the second highest producer of backdrops. And we won the Model Railroad Reader's Choice Award last year in our only our 3rd year in business. So we're climbing up there.
That's good. That's good. Now you started getting into backdrops. Primarily, your business was primarily focused on building layouts. We were just talking about that off camera. So you started out building layouts for clients that people requested to have come and build it. Was the offshoot of this, or how did that?
Yeah, we started building layouts back. I hung the shingle out professionally in late 2010, and everybody said that I was absolutely crazy to start a business in what was still part of the depression of that, the bubble burst back then. And right. But I couldn't buy a job. I was unemployed, so I created my own job, basically. And we would have people that would, we would do the backdrops just for the people that were there, that were heroes for. And they would have people come over and see the backdrops. Oh, where'd you get that backdrop from? So they would call me up, and I'd say, yeah, send me some photos. I'll make a backdrop for you. And right. After doing that for a couple of years, we decided, you know what? I think we can make a business out of this. And so we did. We put some ads up in Model Railroader and Railroad Model Craftsman and some other magazines, O-Gauge Railroading, and we've grown ever since.
So, and Jim, what since you've gotten into this and you've been doing this, what's your background in model railroading? I mean, did you ever lay out as a kid?
Yeah, I had a couple. I started when I was 9 years old. I didn't have the typical Lionel family or my dad or grandfather that they weren't into trains. I just liked trains. I would primarily just go to the library and read the magazines. That was the extent of the hobby at the time. And then Christmas in 1970, my brother got a circle of track, AHM locomotive, 2 cars and a caboose, and he set it up around the Christmas tree on the carpet, ran it all day long, getting all that carpet fuzz in there and burned up the motor. And so, being the enterprising young man I was, I thought, gee, I've got a birthday coming up in March. I'll bet I could get my dad to get me a locomotive for my birthday. And so I traded what I did for my brother got for Christmas for what I got for Christmas, and I ended up with a train set.
Right.
We're gonna do work with Ray on it. So
All right, so sorry about that. We just finishing up the day here.
I hear you. Not a problem. Not a problem. Not a problem. So then you went from there and did.
Well, my mom, God love her, greatest. I had the greatest parents in the world. I consider. They sort of indulged my various hobbies and artistic endeavors and whatnot. So the Christmas tree came down. My birthday came around in March. She let me set up where the Christmas tree was in the living room, a pair of sawhorses and a 4x8 board, and built my first railroad, starting from that little circle of AHM track, and buying switches and track and whatnot over the with whatever the allowance at that day of those days would afford.
Right. How is this? Now you shoot forward to where you start building affordable model railroads for people.
Well, I had actually built a couple of railroads for people before I became a quote unquote professional. And a gentleman had come over in Colorado where I was living at the time, and he liked the layout that I was building. And so he had asked me, hey, you want to come build my railroad for me? And I'm like, well, it's like I work at the club at night. I manage a sign company during the day. I work on my railroad on the weekends. I really don't have any time. I thought he was just looking for free labor to, come over. And he says, well, what do you make at the sign company? And I told him what I made. He says, if you took some time off, could you go back? And it's early 2000. So, jobs were plentiful and whatnot. And so he said, here's a check, down payment, and I'll double what you make at the sign company. You come over and build my railroad for me 8 hours a day. And I'm thinking, sign company, which I kind of like, but get paid, building model railroads, which I love, and I'm going to get paid twice as much.
Sign me up, right?
Yeah, and so I built that layout, and as I started building it, he comes down there one day into the his game room where it was being built. He says, oh, and by the way, you can't tell anybody you're building this for me. And I'm like, well, why not? I'm building it. And he says, well, because I don't want anybody to know I had it professionally built. And at the time, it didn't really matter to me because I wasn't thinking about becoming a professional. It's just I thought this was a one-off. And so I jokingly said to him, I said, well, that's going to cost you. And he pulls out his checkbook and he says, how much? And I thought he was kidding. So I just said, 10 grand. Wrote me a check for 10 grand, had me sign a confidentiality agreement.
Oh, wow.
And said, okay, finish building the railroad.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Works.
So I didn't get any pictures. I couldn't start a portfolio or anything. But again, I didn't really think I was going to be getting into the business. It wasn't until 2010 when I couldn't buy a job. So I basically bought a job. started out.
If you stood on a corner with a shotgun and shot it, you couldn't get a job, basically, or get
no. Well, what I did is I sent out. I was a DJ for 31 years, nightclub DJ and bar DJ, and
Right.
so I traveled all over the Western United States, playing various clubs and things. And I just got too old, too fat, too ugly. They didn't want, they didn't care what the music was anymore. They just wanted somebody that was, send us a headshot. And this is not very photogenic for, the entertainment industry. So
Yeah.
I decided I got to move along, but it's like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And I was looking through Model Railroader magazine, and I saw the ads for, the big established companies, but it's just moving again, So I sent out my resume, told everybody I'm willing to move, willing to transfer if they hire me, give me a chance working for them. I got letter back, no, we're closing, we're laying off for this or that. Nobody was hiring, and talked to a couple of railroad buddies who knew my talents and stuff, and I said, "But just start your own business." And everybody else is like, no, you can't start your own business. It's like you're in the middle of a depression. Who's going to hire you in the middle of it? You just got evidence that everybody's closing, everybody's laying off, and I'm like, what's it going to hurt? So I sold all my DJ gear, and I put some ads in Model Railroader back in the classified, a Model Railroader and Railroad Model Craftsman for 3 months worth of ads, and enough to pay 3 months worth of rent, utilities, that sort of thing. And a month before I was out of money, a couple of jobs started rolling in, and I've never looked back. It's been great.
So from 2010 up until present, right? You've had the Affordable Model Railroad Company, model railroads that you've been doing, and then about 4 or 5 years ago, the offshoot of Railroad Backdrops came in.
Yeah. It'll be 5 years in August.
And now you were a sign maker, correct? I mean, you worked as
I was in the sign industry for 30 years during the day, and then I did the nightclub thing at night. And the nightclub was kind of sketchy. It was either feast or famine. So
Right.
I always maintained a presence, at least part-time, in the sign industry.
right.
So I had some design and some artistic skills and things.
Right.
So.
Well, Jim, let me ask you a question. Because I'm here thinking, I'm talking. How come it looks like you put the cart before the horse?
Yeah, it did. And to be honest with you, I never thought of doing backdrops because I didn't know that it was as big a market as it was, number one, because everybody hand painted, that's what I thought. And in 2010, photo backdrops were just kind of, I think really Backdrop Warehouse, I think was really the only one that was doing it.
Right.
And so it really wasn't like a forefront part of the hobby. But building railroads, I love building railroads, and I don't mind traveling. And
Okay.
a lot of, I figured there's got to be, especially with the age group that we deal with in model railroading,
True.
there had to be people out there that had needed railroads to be completed or couldn't do the work themselves, whatever. So that's how I started advertising is, we'll complete or build your railroad.
Right.
And we come on site to do it. And
Right.
so I was used to traveling from all the DJ work, so I didn't mind it at all. Now instead of carrying around a bunch of speakers and amplifiers and records, I'm carrying around a bunch of model railroading tools. So, same basic thing. And of course, working at days instead of nights, but
Right. True.
and lo and behold, there was a market for a lot of people that had a physical handicap or eyesight problem or something that prevented them from continuing to build their railroad. They might have been working on it for 10 years and they want to see it completed so they could, play with it.
Right.
And I guess I just got lucky that, or something in the back of my mind told me, I don't know, but whichever. But so I just, fell into that niche. And again, the backdrop thing sort of grew out of that grassroots rather than I never really thought, hey, let's go start a backdrop company.
Right.
But I did say, hey, let me go start building model railroads, you know.
Right.
So
Now, the backdrops is that. Let's talk a little bit about the backdrops because that seems to be a thing that's like right now in the hobby. A lot of people are getting into, you know. And what is it that in your working as a sign maker, what did you bring to the table? I mean, where was that moment of aha? This is I got to work this way.
there was no like aha moment of what I brought to the table, so to speak. The aha moment was I just kept, as we built railroads and we did backdrops for people, the aha moment was just that I started getting calls from people unsolicited, just word of mouth that to do backdrops. And since I already had a printer and I was actually doing, when we build the layouts, we do full-size templates.
Right.
And so I had the big architectural, the big large format printer. So we could do the templates full size, but in huge rolls, 36 inch by 200 inch, whatever size, rather than having to piece together 8.5 by 11s. And all of a sudden your main line starts out here and ends up over here when it's supposed to be,
Right.
So since I was utilizing the printer for that, which we also do now for outside clients, I figured, well, I got this printer. People keep requesting these backdrops. Let's give it a shot. I mean, I'm not going to hurt. I spent, a couple of $1,000s in ads, and I figured, if it doesn't work, it's not that bad, and if it does work, that's a pretty small investment to start a business on.
Right. You already had the equipment on hand, so it wasn't like you were losing anything. Or...
Yeah. And since all of the overhead, so to speak,
Right.
the telephone, the rent, all that was already being paid by the build business, I could get into the backdrop business without any real significant investment over and above whatever already,
Right.
an extra guy to help out with the printing and the extra materials, but that, that's covered by the sales. So
What your backdrops is what kind of backdrops do you do? Is it peel and stick? Is it 77?
yeah, we've got 5 different types of material. Well, 3 different types of material, and then 2 of them are also available in peel and stick. So we've got a presentation paper, which is just a paper backdrop, like all the other companies are doing, except I think our photo quality is better, but it's the same basic material and has the same basic problems.
Let me just go back to that photographic quality is better. How does it make it? How do you make it better?
Well, number one, 90% of the photography we take personally.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, we're not just going off the internet, taking stuff off the internet or whatever, where the image to begin with might be low quality or that. So we've got control over the quality of the image. But also, if a lot of the backdrops, they're not scaled to size, they're just sort of relative. Here's the backdrop, but you might have 400-foot tall trees in the foreground.
Right.
Or they look too small because they're too far away. A lot of backdrops are taking what I call the postcard scene. Like you go to you get Chicago, you get Michigan Avenue. Well, everybody knows there's no trains running in Lake Michigan. So, why would you want that picture?
Right.
Now, we have added some of those because there are people that they want that picture because they like that picture. But for the most part, we try to take the photography from where the trains would be looking out from the engineer's perspective.
Right.
And a lot of backdrop companies don't do that. They just, here's the scenery, take it or leave it,
Right. Human City, I have a question for you. Human City Junction says, are you yourself a photographer or do you hire out to have those pictures taken?
No, I do 90% of the photography myself.
Right.
So I do have a friend who lives in Oregon who's a photographer who sends me some stuff from that area, but I do most of the photography myself.
Right. So can you do like, okay, you were talking, I'm trying to get my thoughts here because I'm thinking way ahead of myself here. This is pretty fascinating stuff, I think, because we take these
I like
things.
it.
Yeah, I know. But we as model railroaders, sometimes we take it for granted. We just think, oh yeah, just, but it makes a whole big difference in in work scene, backdrop, I think, and what you present. Now you said you had 5 different materials, that you use.
Yeah, well, technically it's 3 materials. We do the presentation paper, we do a polypropylene film, and then we do the vinyl. And then the polypropylene and the vinyl also come in peel and stick.
Right.
So it's the same material. It's just it has the self-adhesive backing, so that you can peel it and stick it up.
Right.
Most people though actually opt for the non-peel and stick and use wallpaper paste or something similar to put it up. The peel and stick, if you know what you're doing, you're pretty good and you're pretty coordinated. You can actually put it up quite a bit faster. There's really no dry time. You get it up there and boom. The problem with it is it does take a little bit of skill to put it up, and because you only get one shot at it.
Yes.
Yeah. If you get a crease, you get a bubble, you get off track, it's done. A wallpaper paste, you got 20 minutes to sit there and mush it around and do whatever.
William William and Heath out there. William A says, "Do you do?" Or let me see. Do you? Okay. Do you do long hanging backdrops? Basically, he says I've got layouts in a garage and portable layouts. They're portable, and trying to figure out how to add a removable backdrop. Just to emphasize this question so you'll understand it better, William A has an HO scale layout that it's 4x8s, and they're on a movable. They're 2 4x8, so it's 4x16, and
wow, okay.
Yeah, and you got to check it out. It's really nice, and he's presently building an N scale layout in the same way. And it folds up and it rests on top of a work area. So it's portable and it's movable. So his question is, do portable, he's trying to figure out how to do a backdrop for a portable layout.
Yeah, that's a tough one. We did some display layouts. I used to do the Great Midwestern Train Show that was outside of Chicago every month. And when we first started out, that was one of the ways we sort of got the word out. And we had a portable layout there, and we had built a PVC frame. It was just a module, not a whole layout. It's just a module. But we had built a PVC frame for it, and did the sign grommets, the little brass rings inside along the top, and basically just used little wire rings to almost like miniature shower curtain rings to hold it up there. And then that way we could change it from time to time or throughout the show. If we wanted to, we just unscrewed the ends of the PVC and lifted it up and slid that one out, slid a new backdrop in and put it back down. On a size of 4x8, I don't know if PVC would be stiff enough, but I'm sure if you put some risers or something, to hold it every couple of feet. Ours is just a little, 4-foot.
Yeah.
William
A says I tried a bed sheet and it just didn't cut it. LOL.
Yeah. So, if you want to give us a call or give us an email, we can go over some things.
I know William A personally, so I will forward that information.
Oh, okay. Yeah, great.
But just to give you guys out there that are tuning in late, it's Who's Big Bill talking to tonight. We're talking to James Adams of Got to slow down, James. That New Yorker in there. I was outside today running around like typical, talking with James Adams tonight. And James Adams is the owner operator of railroadbackdrops.com and affordablemodelrailroads.com. Railroadbackdrops.com obviously is about backdrop scenery stuff and photographic, and he has 5 different materials that he works with, 3 actually, peel and stick and paste up and stuff, and we were just talking about it. So and he also does affordable model railroading. If you're in the market for getting a model railroad built, he's the guy to go to. So I understand you know Mr. Baronic, the AKA the track planner.
Yes, we have a very good working relationship. We collaborate on a number of designs back and forth. I consider him to be the best operational designer in the business.
Mr. Baronic designed this.
You're allowed, yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, he's very good. I consider. Oh yeah, okay. I consider myself more of a display layout or a rail fanning layout designer. I design things from a more of a photographic perspective. I consider primarily the scenery first and operations second. And with Bill doing the operations first and scenery second, we have that sort of yin and yang thing going on.
That's good.
We can discuss things back and forth and end up with a really, really, really nice design from both levels.
Yeah, really is. Let's see. The Bob's N Scale Man Cave just checked in. Hey, James. Hey, Bill. How you doing, Bob? Bob's got an interesting layout. I don't know if we could do a backdrop for him because his layout, his train actually runs on the ceiling throughout his house. It's an N scale layout.
Oh, wow. We've done a number of G scale and some O scale that run around the shelf, around the, but N scale, how does that work? Because you're looking up, at the angle of it. The trains are so small.
It's an interesting concept. Bob has he's made a wooden bridge, a trestle out of popsicle sticks, and it's very
cool.
Yeah, very well. It's 7 inches below ceiling. Or 7? Yeah, 7 below ceiling level, so you can see it. But it's a very interesting thing on.
Yeah, well, we've done the backdrops for that for O scale and G scale, like I said, but that you can't. You got to take into a lot of design considerations because the bottom part of the backdrop you really can't see, and then depending on how low the ceiling is, the top part's always in shadow. If they didn't do their lighting, around the edges, so
Right.
it gets some design considerations. But yeah, we've done it before. We can do them.
Do you do custom backdrops? Like, say, if I came to you and said, "Hey, I have this situation where I have this break in the railroad where there's a road, and I'd like to have that road continue into the backdrop and then wind." Do you do things like that?
Oh yeah. We can add any kind of elements like that: roads, streams, hedges, fences, trees. Different elements and things. And virtually every backdrop is technically custom. I mean, if you're ordering just one backdrop, say our Mountain Vista Series 1, you're only getting one backdrop, you get that one photograph. But most people's layouts, you have multiple scenes that you're traveling through on the layout. And so we can take those different scenes, you can select different scenes, and then we'll custom blend them together so that it looks just like a natural horizon, just like you're traveling through the countryside.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So also we've had people that have sent us pictures of something specific we want, and then we can also produce those for them.
Right.
So we do. I would say in that respect, probably about 80% of what we do is all custom. So.
What on a typical now you just mentioned that you you're online, you have certain backdrops that you sell and you have for offer. What's the average price of a backdrop?
Off the top of my head, I can't really say because it's a sliding scale. The bigger the backdrop, the less per square foot it would be. But we are probably looking somewhere about, I think, like our typical 2 foot by 8 foot is somewhere around $160, I think. And I can pop up the website real quick here, but I don't know if that would disturb the thing here. But the
I mean, people, it's called railroadbackdrops.com, so you guys out there can check it out to see, what's out
yeah,
there.
because if you go, the way that it's set up, you just run through the website in steps. And
Right.
the step one is you put in the scale you want, you put in the size you want, you put in the material you want, and it tells you what the price is.
Right.
So it's really easy. So you know what the price is right up front, or you could go through and scroll, and pick out pictures. The way most people, first thing they want to know is what the price is. And
Yeah,
so
well,
that's why we put that as step one.
Yeah, well, we're all looking for something, but nothing around.
Yeah. And then we periodically run promotions in the various magazines where they can get discount codes, discount coupons, things like that. So we do give a military 10% discount, military or ex-military. So there's ways to, bring the cost down. If that's a concern.
No, I hear you, but it's again, it's what you want to enhance in your model railroad, and
Yeah. I mean, nowadays a good locomotive is $300, $400, $500. That's one locomotive, and you're not going to see that locomotive constantly. When you think about a backdrop, it's a focal point of the layout forever, and always there. It's you don't have to wait and see. Hey, when's that locomotive coming around? The backdrop.
We had Mr. Thornton on from Proto Throttle last month. He's the gentleman the throttle for diesel engines.
Yeah.
Right. And he was talking about the price of Proto Throttle. It was with everything included. What you get with it was a $600 item, and someone in the Q&A mentioned that they'll wait for it to be mass produced. He'll wait for them to mass produce it out of China. And he, to his credit, he stuck to his guns and said, this will never be mass produced in China. It will be made here in the USA, and this is what it costs. And he brought up the same thing you said. He says, I've been to guys' houses who bought 2-3 locomotives with loco sound, DCC equipment that cost well into the $400-500s. And, so, and that's been a standard argument, You're right. You pay X amount of money for the engines, but you're not looking to make it look, make it enhanced. You know what I'm saying?
The thing that a lot of people didn't realize, and I was one of those people until I actually got into the industry, is mass produced is for model railroading. It's not like saying mass produced for Walmart.
Right.
Model railroad is a very small niche by any standard of a hobby. And so, like I spoke before about us being the second leading as far as sales wise backdrop companies in the U.S., but that's nothing compared to the poster printers that sell whatever the the heartthrob of the month is. They sell millions and millions of those posters, and so people ask, well, why can I get a poster at Walmart for $5 and I got to pay $160 for a backdrop? Well, number one, it's pretty much a custom backdrop. I have almost 600 backdrops up on the site to choose from. I've got another 3,000 photos that I've taken, panoramic photos that I haven't even produced yet. So I may sell, out of those 600 I've got up there on site, probably 500 of them I've never sold a single one of.
Right.
but it's up there for that one person that does want it, and so when they say mass produced, well, most of us in the industry aren't big, huge companies. Because of internet and because of marketing and because of people's perceptions, you could come off like you're a big, Fortune 500 company. Well, in fact, you've got 8 people working for you.
Right.
So where there are a lot of mom and pop, and I'm not sure what the figures are, but people like Scale Trains, Intermountain, some of the bigger names in the locomotive industry, they look like they're big, huge companies. I think Intermountain has like, I don't know, 6 or 7, maybe 8 people that make up the entire company.
You're right. They do. You're right.
We're on very, very tight margins. We're on very tight budgets, and mass producing in China is a container load of stuff rather than a tanker of containers, coming across seas. So the people's perception is, of course, you own a business, you're making a ton of money.
Of course.
It's not the way in the model railroad industry. So,
When I was a kid in high school, I got my old man got me. I said my father was a owner operator of a bar restaurant in Manhattan, and he had 6 kids, and we couldn't sit around in the summertime. So he got me a job with a printing guy, 17, and this guy he would do posters.
yeah.
He would do any kind of poster for Broadway, anything. And my job was to load the reams of paper into this big freaking machine. And and the paper would come off, and I'd have to hang them and the whole thing for drying time. And I remember every once in a while he would get a custom order of a backdrop for a Broadway play that he had to do. And in the basement, he had this tremendous printing machine, and he would bring the 2 seasoned guys down, and I would be like, oh, I'm actually going to work on this. The old guy, Fritz, he said to me, no, he has to smoke a cigar. He goes, no, you're not working on this. You're just going to push paper. That's all you're doing. So, the difference, like you were saying earlier, the quality of what you're doing, and then what you do professionally and how you want it to professionally look is a big difference. The Bob's End Scale Man Cave, he wants to know, what is the difference between papers that you use?
Between what?
Paper that you use, what's the difference?
Oh, well, the presentation paper is just the standard paper that all, most of the backdrop companies use. It's it's a paper product, so it has a limited lifespan. It is somewhat water resistant. The industry standard, they say water resistant or waterproof. They're referring to the inks. Unfortunately, when you put those inks on paper, you get the paper wet and the paper gets destroyed. Or if you get alcohol on them, the inks will run. Or you can't wash them, you can't clean them, you can't do anything. So because my experience was in the sign business, we brought over the polypropylene film and the vinyl, and then after we print them with the waterproof inks, we then coat them with a laminate, special laminate that it does 3 things. One, it helps with scratch resistance and tear resistance. It helps for UV for any of the guys that put up the fluorescent lights. The UV won't fade the inks like they will on the paper. And the third thing is, and Model Railroader did a really nice video for us. If you go to our YouTube site and you look up the video, that it was fashioned like the sarcastic infomercials. He's throwing stuff on the backdrop and putting plaster and hydrocal and spray paint and all kinds of stuff. And you can clean it right off of this laminate that we have. So instead of having to put your backdrop up and then very carefully mask it off, make sure you don't get any tape on it, because if you pull the tape off of the paper, it'll pull your ink off. So you can slap these backdrops up and you can do all your scenery stuff. You can get all the hydrocal and plaster and paint and everything on them, and you can wipe them off with clean them off with alcohol, mineral spirits, 409 cleaner, and we've got the only backdrops in the industry that you can do that with.
Really?
Anybody else, you get alcohol on them and the inks will run.
That's it. It's shot. Yeah, no, I can attest to that. I had a backdrop that did that. I sprayed alcohol when I was cleaning the track in the corner of it, and it bled right off. And I was like, ugh.
Yeah. If it doesn't bleed, if you're lucky, it'll just leave a dark spot.
Yeah.
When it dries,
Yeah.
it'll make it look darker there. Yeah. So.
Exactly. What's if someone were to call up, say they're doing the seam divider on the middle of a peninsula and they needed 1, 2, 3, 4 certain like industrial backdrop, just standard backdrop, is that something you already printed out? Like if I put the order in, what's the turnaround time on?
Well, normally we strive for 3 to 5 days on just a standard, what we call a one-off, if it's right off of our catalog. Unfortunately, due to the coronavirus and the over exuberant unemployment checks that people are getting these days, staffing is a little bit of a problem right now. We kind of shut down for a while, then we reopened, then it shut down, but we're back open for good now this past Monday. And so anybody out there that might be watching and is waiting for their backdrop, it's already ordered. We're trying to get them all out by this next week to play catch up, and then we'll be back to our normal 3 to 5 days. And if you want something custom blended, then obviously it depends on how much back and forth there is on the blends and the approval. And because whatever we do in the custom, we always send electronic proofs to you, so you can always see it before we print it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, because when I was in the sign business, I had so many bosses that were just like, no, you get what we designed for you. And I never understood that. There's other railroad designers that you pay for it, they give you one design. If you don't like it, pay me for another one.
Yeah.
I can kind of understand you got to get paid for the work that you do. But at the same time, you're going to live with this backdrop. You're going to live with this railroad for 20, 30 years. With advances in medical science, hopefully 40 or 50 years.
Right.
So I don't want you 10 years from now cursing me on a design, saying, I don't like this design, it doesn't work, or cursing me on a backdrop that says, this thing it's old, it's faded, it's whatever. So no, we like to use top quality stuff and do it what we believe to be a top quality job. And
sure.
Life's too short and the industry is too small to do otherwise.
Yeah, right. And it's based on reputation as well. Because like you said earlier, it's a niche hobby,
Yeah, and word, especially with internet blogs, shows like this, forums, word gets out fast. If if you're not treating people right, and even before the internet, look how companies got a reputation quickly if they weren't treating people right. Yeah, and now it's just light speed.
Yeah.
You could go from being the top dog on the street to being out of business and a couple of bad reviews on a forum.
Yeah.
Justified or not,
Yeah, you're right. You are naked. I always get this screwed up. Why you run naked? Part 4. He says he states, well, since I don't have a layout, I need a front drop. I need a drop backdrop so it looks like I have a layout.
Now that's an interesting idea. Yeah, most people just call them wall murals, which we have. But that's an interesting way to phrase it. I should maybe
look into that.
The thank them, and I may use that in my marketing. You don't need a layout; just get backdrops.
Yeah.
Actually, we have a section called Sports and Recreation, where I just put up a couple of football stadiums, just because I had somebody that called me up, and the particular one was the Packers, Lambeau Field, and they just said, I don't have a railroad, but I really like you guys' photography. Do you got anything of Lambeau Field? Because they were a big Packers fan.
Right.
And I said, well, just by chance, yes, we do. And so they weren't even a model railroader, made a sale to them. And so then I started thinking, well, what if I started putting up other sports stadiums, not with the intention necessarily selling them, but people would be talking. They'd say, hey, you know, this guy's got everything. He's even got MetLife Stadium, you know,
Right.
and which we actually do have up there. And so it's just sort of a talking thing, you know.
Right. Right. Just to get people chattering.
Yeah. So no, I think if you don't have a layout, but you got a wall space or shelf space, that would be something, especially if you got something like maybe one of our freight yard scenes. So it would look like there's a railroad there.
Right. Right. Exactly right. Exactly.
That's a great idea. It's
An instant layout. Here we go. It's a multi-million-dollar idea right there.
yeah.
You know, that's pretty cool. For you people that turn it in late, it's 9:45 p.m. But just so you get a heads up, we're talking with James Adams, and James Adams is the owner operator of railroadbackdrops.com. You can go over there and check out his backdrops that he's presently he's got on there for you guys that model railroads in the process of building them and want something in the background or have something in the background. Do you do these? See this thing that's behind me? This guy went out of business years ago. I caught him. He would sell these buildings on a sheet, and you would just cut them out and put them on.
Yeah, we don't do that. There are a couple of companies that do that. There's one company, I don't know if he's still in business or not, that had you could buy a CD and you could print out individual buildings and cut around them and paste them up there. And you know, we like to think we're a little more professional, a little more high end than that with our product. But we are coming out with a selection of buildings where people can add them to an existing scene that we have, or I suppose, you know, if they get enough of them, they could take several of them and say, can you arrange these in this order, you know, and then we'd blend nicely for them. But it's not high on my priority list, but it is eventually coming.
Yeah.
So, but again, it wouldn't be an individual building. It would be, they would select the buildings they wanted for the backdrop that they wanted.
On a custom thing, what was the strangest? I always ask anybody who has a business in the hobby, what's the strangest order you ever got, other than the Lambeau Field, which isn't really too strange, but
no, that's not too strange. I had a guy, I don't know if you consider it strange or not, when I was doing the shows in Wheaton out there outside of Chicago, and there was a gentleman that had a booth there. Wasn't really selling anything. He built boat models, and so he would every couple of months buy a different nautical themed backdrop or water themed backdrop. And he sent me a picture one time of a iceberg up in the north, Arctic, and he says, "I just got done building this Russian icebreaker model," and he says, "Can you reproduce this iceberg?" You know, you wouldn't think of an iceberg in a model railroad, you know.
Right.
So, but again, he wasn't doing model railroads per se. He was doing these ships and these boats.
Right.
And he wasn't even selling them. He just came up there to display them and show off his work, and you know, hobbyists. So yeah, we do a couple of every other month or so. He'd do a new backdrop theme, and when he sent me this one with the iceberg, I thought, well, sure, I could do it. It's kind of weird. And then when I saw what he did with it, I understood.
Right.
Yeah. So
To Bob's End Scale, Man Cave has a question. He says, I am looking for a specific Omaha skyline perspective. If I sent in a picture to you, can that be made with the custom clouds in there?
can it be made with what?
The custom clouds that are in this perspective, the Omaha skyline perspective.
Yeah. If we could do it either, if he wants the clouds that are there, we can leave them in for his custom backdrop. Or if he won't like the skyline, but he doesn't like the clouds that are in the picture, we can have those matched out and put a new cloud beyond. One of the other things I think that differentiates us from other companies is we have a selection of skies and clouds that you can put behind in individual. You can do a custom scene of clouds behind. So just because you order the Chicago skyline, say, it doesn't have to have the default cloud that we show on the website. We've got a selection of, I don't know, about 30 different cloud scenes, everything from basically no clouds, just blue sky, all the way to thunderstorms.
Really?
Yeah, we've actually got one coming out. It's a tornado. We haven't got it done yet, but yeah, we're going to be coming out of tornado. I got some tornado shots from Iowa last year, and so I'm going to be putting those out shortly.
Cool. Human City Junction wants to know if we send in our own images, what DPI is required.
It really depends on the size of the picture. With digital cameras today, the specs are so all over the board, but typically the minimum, just kind of a ballpark minimum, would be 25% or greater of the size of the backdrop. So if you wanted a 2 foot by 4 foot backdrop, 2 foot by 8 foot, send the picture format 1 foot by 4 foot at 300 DPI.
Oh, okay. That's interesting to know.
Yeah, the larger the original picture, the less the DPI can be.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So it's best to just contact us, send us the photographs, and then we can tell you if they're good enough or not, or what size you need to improve them.
All right. So communication with you is essential. After that is,
The what?
the communication with you is paramount, because then you do have that discussion with the customer.
Yeah, because we want to make sure they're going to get a good quality. A lot of people, they hype up all the pictures in these camera phones, and which is great for internet viewing and things like that. But by the time you want to blow it up to backdrop size, that little internet picture, it gets what we call the jaggies. It
Right.
just gets out of proportion and really rough around the edges and things.
Right. And there's nothing much you can do to clean that up.
No, not. Yes and no. It all depends on the expense you want to go to, because it does take
Right.
several hours to get it. And some pictures are just way too low a resolution.
Yeah. I can imagine that. But shoot in RAW. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, we can take raw pictures.
Oh, okay.
RAW is for those of you that don't know, RAW is a type of file format. It's what the digital cameras actually take, and then they usually will convert it to like a JPG or a PNG or something like that. That is what you see and what you send out. But the actual image that it takes is called RAW, and that includes all of the things that the camera takes in its raw format, and then everything is there. Nothing's been compressed, nothing's been left out. So that's actually the best format to send it in. The problem is those files are huge, so you got to have either an FTP server or send it to me on flash drive or something like that, or if you have a lot of space in your Dropbox,
Yeah.
These backdrop, the backdrop photos can get up to 400 or 500 megabytes.
Yeah. I'm thinking about this, and yesterday I had a conversation with Miles Hale, and Miles Hale is an excellent model maker and a model railroader, and he's doing a series on his channel, University Model Railroading, where he's doing this building in O scale, and it's 200 windows he had to cut out, whole thing, and he's putting them in, and curtains and a shade, and then you build this, and it's the same thing, like in your situation, you make this product, you put it on your layout, and it may have been the focal point of you making it for a couple of weeks. You know what I'm saying? Him taking months and me taking months. Then you place it on the layout and it becomes part of the layout. It's no longer the focal point. It's part of a focal, if you understand what I mean. You know,
Yeah, it
you
depends on the building or the scene. Yeah.
right, it becomes like, you know, like I got this building from it's that laser art, you know, and I spent about a month and a half on it. I mean, I really went into detail. I bought the fire escapes, I bought whatever it was that I wanted to detail it out, and it was on my bench, and it was like it was the focal point. And then it went on the layout and it blended in with the other buildings. And I guess that's a good thing, because that's what you ultimately want. You know, you don't want it to be that thing that stands out like a sore thumb. You want it to be part of it. I'm just saying that it's like this work that you put into it and then it blends in. So I guess it's a give and take kind of. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to, you know.
Yeah, like when I design layouts, like I said, I do it from sort of a Rails fanning perspective. So when I design a layout, I actually take areas and say, we'll just depending on the size of the layout, we'll say this is going to have 4 or 5 focal point scenes. And so you've got an area of really intense, nice detailing, and then you sort of have, I won't say a bland area, but an area where the eye can kind of rest.
Right.
And then you have another really intense scene, and then an area where the eye can kind of rest.
Right.
And so you might have a really highly detailed urban scene, and then you go into just a farm scene.
Right.
It's moderately detailed, but the eye and the brain pick it up and say, wow, that's a really nice farm scene.
Yeah, yeah.
Compared to the urban scene, it's not nearly the attention,
Right.
but it blends in, and it's amazing how much the human brain fills in on things.
You're right. You're right. Okay, John 26, he says, could we send a flash drive to allow larger files? Can they send you
You can mail a flash drive for large files.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just make sure you have a backup copy, because I don't trust the post office or FedEx or UPS.
Yes, I understand.
I don't trust any company that says, you pay us to do something, but if you want us to do it right, you have to pay us more for insurance. I mean, I wouldn't have a client if I said, yeah, okay, here's what it costs to build a railroad, but if you want it to run right, you got to pay me an extra $100,000 for insurance. I wouldn't have a client.
Yeah. Human City Junction says, in my last job, I wish the files were only 400 MB. I would have clients wanting to send me video files that were 10 to 20 G, and they thought they would email them to me. Yeah. Progressive Rail says, have you produced any backdrops in Zscaler? Zscaler isn't mentioned on your site. Would that be considered a custom piece for some reason?
Well, yeah, because we were limited to only 5 scales in the drop-down box. The web guy said, well, you can't do more than that for some reason. So we can do any scale. It doesn't matter. All of our scenes are fully scalable. Do whatever, and that would not be considered custom. I mean, let's rephrase that. Yes, it's custom, but no, it won't cost you any extra money.
There you go.
As soon as I don't like throwing around the word custom. As soon as you say custom, everybody thinks, oh, cha-ching, Yeah, so
right.
All of our stuff is if you have 2 or more backdrops that are blended together, it's custom, but it doesn't cost you anymore.
Doesn't cost you.
Part of the service. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I used to work for a plumber, and one of the other jobs I had, someone asked him one day, well, do you have a guarantee on this job? And he said, yeah, as soon as you see my taillights make that right at the corner, that's when I'm like, okay, Marty 1107 from down under in Australia wants to know, do you ship to the other side of the planet?
Yes, well, I don't personally, but yes, UPS, FedEx, Post Office. I talk about all 3 of them, but we send everything via Post Office priority mail. And I've just had too many bad experiences with UPS and FedEx. Plus, they cost twice, So, but yes, we have actually a number of people in Australia, Great Britain, India, Japan. We ship all over.
Right. Dwight at Northern Star wants to know how would you mount a backdrop of your two concrete block walls?
You have to put something over the concrete, like masonite or styrene, or you have to put another surface over it. That I wouldn't mount anything. I wouldn't put Scotch tape on concrete wall. It just doesn't stick unless it's sealed. And the best way is to just put something over it, like a masonite or styrene or a PVC plastic, something like that.
You couldn't prime that block wall?
The problem with the block wall is they're not perfectly smooth.
No, that's
And
true.
so you're not, you're only putting the backdrop on the high tips of the surfaces. And especially if it's like a masonry, typical masonry for 10 or 15 years ago, no matter what sealer you put on it, somehow water gets through. And if you get that water building up behind your backdrop, between the backdrop and the concrete wall, you're eventually going to have problems.
Yeah, true. You Are Naked 4 says that's why Union Pacific's slogan is "We will deliver, we might deliver" was already taken by the Postal Service.
Yeah, I mean, I don't particularly like any of them. The millions and millions and millions of packages and letters and things that they deliver every year. If I have one every 6 weeks or 2 months that, I have to put an insurance claim on, and I always think it's like, man, they're bad. But I'm probably the one out of the million that had the problem. It's like the guy driving on the street that cuts you off and doesn't pay attention. You're probably the one time he didn't pay attention today.
Right.
But it happened.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I got the attitude, I always say to people when they mail, like when I get stuff mailed, and I said, well, I didn't, I'll call up, I'll say, how did you send it? And they'll tell me, and they'll get into this whole big, they're getting into the whole thing of like, yeah, we'll get there. I said, listen, once you hand it to the guy behind the counter and you let go of it, you have no control over it.
Right, exactly.
It's gone.
I'll
tell you, the lady next door, right? Her son just recently, he was 57, 58. He got sick. Not with the COVID, he got sick and he passed away, right?
Yeah.
And, passed away. And about 3-4 days ago, she got a postcard in the mail from 1984 from him and his family when they went to Italy in Rome. And she was like, why did I get this postcard? So the landlord, he said, let me find out. So we have the General Post Office down here on Staten Island where the mail gets sorted, everything gets sent out. So he knew some people down there. And what happened was the post office manager told him that when COVID-19 came in, he says they had to take all the equipment apart, every machinery to deep clean it. It hasn't been cleaned. He says, do you know how much mail we found that were cabinets? Don't tell anybody. Yeah. He said to him, he says, don't tell nobody that. But that's what happened.
Yeah. Oh, I was, when I lived back in Arizona, it was like, I don't know, 92 or 93. I got an envelope from the post office, and inside the envelope was a nice letter and a baggie full of ashes. And they were apologizing for the lettering got caught on the machines. They got caught on fire, and hence the bag of ashes. And I'm holding this bag of ashes up, and I'm holding the letter up, and I'm like, how did they know that this bag of ashes went to the address?
But I know. But in all seriousness, I mean, they deliver billions and billions of pieces.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
around the world, and they do. You know, it gets there eventually. It gets there, and you know, it's listen. You know, kindness goes. My mailman comes. I always have a 2 bottles of cold water for him in the hot summer, and you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Well,
it's
and with this coronavirus thing, it's just messed everything up. What
yeah,
used to take, to Canada, I could ship things to Canada, and it would get there in 4 or 5 days, and then a couple of days to go through customs. We shipped the package May 27th, and as of yesterday, it still hasn't gotten there.
yeah,
It still says it's in Canadian customs,
yeah. Sure.
and it just and they say, well, we're backed up because of the virus, and packages are stacking up because we have to different way they have to handle them and scan them and all this other different stuff. And I'm like, okay, then why are you still taking my money for priority mail if you know it ain't going to be
Right.
priority?
Right. Yeah. You know, I just have mail packages out to Canada, and I have to give it up to the lady at the counter. She looked at me and she says, "You don't want to mail this priority to Canada." And I said, "I don't." She goes, "No." She says, "Because they're not going to get it for a month or so." So she says, "Mail it first class." She says, "Because it'll get there at the same time for a lot less money." And I said, "Well, thank you for that." And she was right, because the person I sent stuff to, I said, "Did you get it?" And they said, "No, not yet." And then a couple of days later, they said, "Oh, it's still in customs." And then like 3 weeks later, they got it. So, you know.
Yeah, well, we're still shipping priority mail, mainly because of the tracking, and we know whether somebody got it or didn't get it, or approximately when they're supposed to get it. It's a lot easier to track it. First class mail, you have to specifically.
Oh, no, in a business situation, no, I know that. Mine wasn't.
Yeah.
That
So.
was the whole thing. Hey, James, I want to thank you very much for being on the show with us and taking time out of your busy schedule, because you were supposed to be on last month, but unfortunately we had a terrible storm down there, and you lost the internet and all the power, and I'm glad to see that you were all right and survived that. Got a bit of a hailstorm that night, right?
Yeah, hailstorm. That pretty much destroyed my van, and we were without power for about 5 hours without power internet. And it's ironic, as soon as I got the computer and everything set up, it started raining today. We didn't have a storm today. It was just some nice spring shower, summer shower that blew through and everything. So, no glitches today, and I'm glad. I really enjoyed it.
I'm glad we got this scheduled. James Adams, guys, is the owner-operator of RailroadBackdrops.com. Go check it out if you're in the market for a backdrop for your model railroad. And as he explained, he can do about basically everything that you need to be done. And if not, you can always call him up and find out. And also, he is AffordableModelRailroads.com. If you got a couple of shekels hanging around and you want to get that dream layout built, well, he's the guy to go to. So go check out the backdrop thing and see what you like back there, and I'm sure that he could work something out. James, once again, thank you so very, very much for being on. I know that you're inundated and running around, and you took time out to be on the show, and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, it was a pleasure, and glad to be on the show, and hope you keep up the good work.
Well, thank you very much. Hey, for you guys out there, just remember this Saturday, June 27th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Railroad Empires comes back. They're going to be doing a thing on electrical wiring up the layout with our host, Andy, Robert, Tim, and Lloyd, the Fab Four, as we like to call them around here. These guys, they do everything. They really keep this place together. And on the July 2nd, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, the Talk Show, that's where you guys can mosey on down to the general store where John's hanging out. Go get a soda pop out of the cooler, pull up a chair next to the checkerboard, and talk trains. You can bring in bag, because if you have a camera and you have good internet and a laptop, webcam, you can come in just like we're in here, and you can bring in brag and do what you did and show off. If you have a situation that you got going on with one of your railroads, models, whatever it is, you can talk to them, because there's a lot of guys that know a lot of things out there. A lot more than I do, that's for sure. So they'll be more than happy to help you out. That's Johnny's Train Talk Show. That's going to be on July 2nd. And all the shows are at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What else am I forgetting? Oh, on July 8th, I come back with Who's Big Bill talking to Sean Crotay. He's out of Seattle, Washington, and he's an N-scaler. And that's just one more thing. I'm sorry. My apologies to Rod Stewart. We were supposed to have you on tonight, Rod, but we ran out of time. We were talking to James Adams of RailroadBackdrops.com. Rod, I'm really sorry. We'll try to get you on the next show. And I want to thank all you guys out there. Especially want to thank Johnny Reb here for being the producer, director of this show, because without him, me and James would be talking into the air. Yeah, so he's kept us connected, and he's done a really great job of directing and producing this show for us. So once again, thank you. You guys out there, stay safe, be well, but most of all, be blessed, and we'll see you on the radio.